In the same way a blueprint is crucial when building a structure, so God's design for marriage is crucial for a marriage to remain the sacred, beautiful and powerful bond it was intended to be. This online course has been developed to share vital insights on biblical marriage that are often overlooked. Your marriage can soar like never before if you get hold of these timeless principles. We want to see you prosper.
Hey, welcome to session 8 of this Marriage Blueprint online course. Today we're talking about the single biggest enemy in marriage. What would you say would be the thing that causes the most problems in marriage? Maybe communication, because that's one of the biggest ones around. What about money and finances? Because that's kind of big, that's huge. What about social media? Like Facebook, Instagram, all those kind of things. Let me just say this. The impact of those things are more than we think. But these are some of the things that are major reasons why marriage comes under pressure. But there is something bigger at work and behind all these things that I want to look at. Before I share with you what the biggest single enemy of marriage is, I want to talk to you a little bit about chess. As a child, I loved to learn about the chess game. We often traveled for holiday to a city on the east coast of South Africa, and we stayed there with a family we knew very well. And in their dining room, there was an oak chess table. Not just a chess board, a whole solid oak table with a chess pattern on a chessboard on the table itself. And the smell of the felt at the base of each of those solid and heavy chess pieces constantly hung in the air. I loved to play chess with my dad, and he would teach me about the different ways the different parts moved and the rules about chess. And we played at least once a day, we played a match. And I loved playing these things. I loved to learn about it more and more. And I learned about the various ways that the different pieces moved on the chessboard. And one of the pieces that intrigued me was the knight. Now the knight has stealth built into its movability because its possible next move can be overlooked. If you know chess, then you'll know what I'm talking about. For those who don't play or don't know chess that well, allow me to quickly explain this, as this is a good way of illustrating what I want to share with you about the biggest enemy in marriage. Now the knight chess piece looks like a horse, and it can potentially reach more than a quarter of the chessboard in one move, and in many directions as well. So if you look at the diagram that I'm going to put up for you, you'll see there that all those arrows point to 8 possible positions on the board where the knight can move from where it is right there. So the possible reach of the knight is over a quarter of the whole chessboard. So a quarter of the chessboard is actually within its reach in that single move. So what makes it even more dangerous is the way that this chess piece moves. It doesn't move in straight lines like all the other chess pieces. The knight moves in an L shape. Look at this diagram I'm going to show you. So this is one chess piece to keep your eye on because its movement is so unlike the other pieces. It moves in an L shape, so it can move up and left or right. It can move left and right and across in those L shapes. So it can easily be overlooked what this chess piece does. So for the chess player, it is to consider every time where the enemy's knight can move, potentially move, and to stay out of those areas, to keep it clear or to just cover your pieces within the reach of that knight. So why am I using a chess piece as an example for marriage? Because in much the same way as a knight in chess can catch a player off guard, so can the biggest enemy in marriage catch us off guard. Let me put it to you this way. The knight in chess moves unconventionally, and moves can be overlooked or underestimated. Same with the biggest enemy. The biggest enemy of marriage also moves unconventionally, and its influence can be overlooked and underestimated. Secondly, the knight can reach a potential large area of the chessboard, and the biggest enemy in marriage can potentially influence and take captive a large part of marriage. So the tactics of the biggest enemy to marriage can also be overlooked and underestimated, and we need to keep our eyes open for this, because it can potentially rob a marriage of unity, love, and dedication, many times unnoticed at first. So what is the biggest enemy in marriage? It's called selfishness. Selfishness, when that desire to want or to have or to be satisfied becomes so strong in an individual's life, and we no longer play for the team, we no longer exist for the team, for the marriage team, but it starts to become my desires, my needs, my wants. Let me tell you a story about a rabbi. One day he asked a man who came to him for some help, he asked the man to look through a window and tell him what he sees. The man went to the window, looked out the window and said, well, I see a woman walking with her daughter in the street. And then he asked the man to go and look in the mirror and tell him what he sees. And the man went to the bathroom, looked in the mirror and said to the rabbi, I see myself. The rabbi said, both the window and the mirror are made of glass, but the thin layer of silver makes us only see ourselves. Selfishness is like that thin layer of silver on a sheet of glass, and it changes everything we see. It changes our perspective, and it changes the dynamics of life, especially life in our marriage. When selfishness is present, we no longer see others through the glass. We only see ourselves in the glass. Now, we all have some of the selfishness in us. Some of us don't think so. Some people will deny this. But the truth is that we all do have a little bit of this, a little bit of selfishness inside of us. There is enough evidence in the Bible that selfishness is something we need to be very, very wary of, and we need to deal with in our lives. Just have a look at these few verses. Proverbs 18 verse 2. Fools find no pleasure in understanding, but delight in airing their own opinions. So, in this case, the writer of the Psalm of the Proverbs says that a fool is like a person who just wants his own thing. He finds his own pleasure and his own delight in airing his own opinion. So, just what he thinks is important. Second verse here is Psalm 119 verse 36. Turn my heart. This is a prayer by the psalmist. He says, God, turn my heart toward your statutes and not towards selfish gain. Again, an acknowledgement that there's selfishness. There's a need for me to gain something here for myself. But Lord, turn my heart away from that and towards what you want. Galatians 2 verse 20, very well-known scripture where Paul writes, and he says, I have been crucified with Christ. He said, I have laid down myself. I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. And the life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. So this is Paul saying, I lay down my life. I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer what I want or how I want to live, but I live through Christ. And I live with him who lives in me. Mark 8:34. Then he called the crowd to himself. Jesus called the crowd to himself along with his disciples and said, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. So this is again talking against selfishness, saying deny yourself. Just deny those things that you want for yourself and take up your cross and follow me. So how does selfishness destroy marriage? The sad thing is that most marriages are rooted in selfishness. The problem, especially in modern Western mindset, starts actually before marriage with the so-called dating system. Here's what the dating system does, how it works. Firstly, I find someone that looks attractive to me. That's what I do. I mean, if you think back of dating, maybe you dated or whatever, but you think of that, you see someone and it's by the looks of that person that you're attracted. Because that person looks good to me. It's the looks that bring some kind of feeling inside here and it attracts. There's nothing about how I can bless that person. Or, wow, I want to really just pour into the life of that person. No, that person looks good to me. Whoa. The second thing is, find someone that makes me feel good and makes me look good too. Because a dating person feels good because the person he or she is dating makes them feel valuable, makes them feel important, makes them feel great. And sometimes there's even bragging rights going with that. For being in a relationship with so-and-so, that I'm in a relationship with so-and-so, so, I feel important, I feel valuable, and so on. And maybe there's even a constant comparing. I'm dating this one, and he's dating that one, and all those kind of things, and trying to compare people with each other. Who can I show off to with this person next to me? Because he or she makes me look good. Well, the third thing is that in dating, I find someone that will benefit me and please me. I have a need to be loved, or I have a need to have someone with me in life, and this person will do that for me. We don't always rarely think about what we contribute to them, how we can pour into their lives. It's mostly about how they will affect me, what they will bring into my life, what benefits I will have by having this person in my life and dating this person. This is the way the dating system operates. And most times, the relationship does not end in marriage, but rather in breakup and heartache most of the times. Why? Because there may come a time when that person no longer meets my needs the way I want them to meet it. Or they don't do what I want them to do. Or I get hurt. Or that person puts me off. Or puts me in a bad light. And because of those things, because of those feelings, most dating relationships are terminated and the person chucked away. And then I, as the one that dated that person, go and look for the next person. Based on what? Based on the hurt and the feeling of rejection, of disappointment that I felt with the previous person, I now try and get someone who's going to fill that void, who's going to fill that gap, who's going to ease that hurt and take away that pain by loving me or being close to me. And the thing is that my need is just bigger than it was before. Somehow we think that this is good preparation for marriage, but actually think about this. This is good preparation for divorce. Because if this person does not meet my needs anymore, I just terminate and I let them go and I send them away and I get someone else. That's exactly what happens in divorce. When someone does something in marriage that I don't like, I don't agree with, I send them away. I said, I want a divorce. Let's just separate. Let's just go our own ways. Let's find someone else. And if you have listened to covenant, you'll understand that that is not the way God designed it to be. And the reason is that dating is rooted in selfishness. It's rooted in selfishness. And it teaches young people how to not go through with marriage, but how to rather end up in divorce and just settle and just sort it out with a separation, with termination. Craig Hill, the founder of Family Foundations, with which we are also affiliated, wrote a book called Two Fleas and No Dog. And in this book, he refers to the fact that fleas are like parasites, and they seek a host like a dog to go and sit on and suck the life out of it by sucking the blood out of that person, and then becoming bigger and bigger and bigger in the process, and more needier and wanting more and more and more. And he says many people in the dating system, they kind of fit the analogy or the picture of a flea, being like a parasite, that they have this need and they want someone to give them life, and therefore they go and look for this host that they can go and feed on, and then people, sometimes they get messed up and they change hosts and so on, and they get to marriage and they think, wow, I found the ultimate dog. This person, this ultimate host is going to give me everything I need, going to give me all the life I need, going to give me all the attention I need, and really, supplying all my needs and all my wants and those kind of things. And then they find out when they get married that, no, actually, this is not the perfect host that I married. This is just another flea. And then you got two fleas and no dog. It's a brilliant book. Maybe you want to order that from us. You can order it through our website, or you can just give us a call and we'll get you in contact with that book. But it's a brilliant, brilliant book explaining the whole thing of selfishness in marriage and what it causes, and the pain and the hurt and the frustration it causes and damage it causes to marriages. What are the dangers with selfishness in marriage? For the answer to this question, I'm going to take a little bit deeper into some of the Bible verses, especially speaking about selfishness. Just have a look at this. Philippians 2 verse 3 to 4 specifically mentions the word selfish. It says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. That's strong language. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the others. Let's look at this verse a little bit. Let's break it down. If you think of selfish ambition, that is a strong desire to do or achieve something for yourself. That's what a selfish ambition is. And then the danger there is that you forget other people. You don't think of the desires or the needs of other people. If you think of vain conceit, which is a very strong term, it is interesting that these two words are used next to each other, because vain means to have an excessively high opinion of one's abilities or worth. Conceit means excessive pride in oneself. So this is a double statement that could sound like this if you put it into just a different setting or a different way of saying it. Do nothing out of excessively high opinion of yourself, being overly proud of yourself. Ouch. So it says just tone down. Don't think of yourself so much. And don't be prideful of yourself. Because the danger here is pride. And the Bible says that pride comes before the fall. So if you look at the flip side of this, if you look at the motives here, the opposite of pride would be humility. And it says here, it talks about humility in this verse. And humility is not thinking of less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. So it's not downplaying who you are. It's just not giving so much attention to yourself so often. It's just thinking about other people more than you think about yourself. And then value others. We talked about this when we looked at the definition of honor, which is seeing others for who they are and giving them what they really deserve in life. So looking out for other people's interests. This is a brilliant verse to keep in mind when we talk about selfishness. The third verse, next one is 1 Corinthians 10:24. No one should seek his own good, but the good of others. So this is very, very clear. The negative side here is seeking our own good. The danger, not playing as a team. The flip side of it is when we seek the good of others, and that's looking out for others. That's playing as a team. And the last verse I want to share with you is James 3:16, for where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. That is strong language, people. This is where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. So the danger of selfishness is very clear and very bluntly said in this verse, where there is selfishness, there is disorder and evil. Plain and simple. Selfishness is something that breeds disorder, it breeds some kind of uneasiness, and it makes things as it's not supposed to be, and it invites evil in. That's why the Bible speaks so openly about it. I'll give you this picture here, how selfishness works. So on the one side, you've got the scale where you as an individual are, let's say, for instance, we're talking about you or I personally being in that picture on the left, and you've got this magnet, which is that inner desire inside of us to just feel important, to have value, and to have our needs met. And it pulls us down, and what it does is it pulls so much on our lives that it lifts everything out of proportion. It upsets the balance in the scale of life, because now you got on the right hand side, you've got all the other things. You've got family life, you've got your relationship with God, you've got your work situation, and all those things now suddenly weighs less than my opinion or my view of myself or the needs that I have. And here's the danger, that if this keeps pulling down on the left hand side, then all those things on the right in the red circle, it becomes the means to an end. It becomes a way of just transferring more things to myself. So that will put pressure on my work, because now my work needs to satisfy me. My family needs to be there for me and for my needs. Even God and the Bible needs to speak to me in the way I want to, because I've got this need, I've got the selfishness, I've got the self-focus inside of me that needs to be addressed. And it creates a very, very unhealthy place. So can you see why that last verse we look at talks about disorder and evil practice when it comes to selfishness, because it just draws too much to yourself, and it brings everything out of balance. So what are possible signs that selfishness has crept into your marriage? I call these possible signs. These are not to be the all and end all of selfishness in marriage, but it can give us a good indication when it is present. Not all of these have to be present all the time or all at once. So any one of these or a combination of these can indicate that selfishness is present. Also, I have to add that these things could be contributed by one or both partners in marriage. So here are 10 possible signs of selfishness in marriage. The first one is biased conversations. Biased conversations are conversations where one or both spouses try to overpower the conversation because of the sense of being right and feeling the need to prove it. Many arguments start in this way, and because of strong opinions and convictions, can escalate into something really ugly. The reason why many arguments start and why biased conversations take place is often because of the second sign, one-sided perspective. A one-sided perspective. When my perspective is the only perspective I can see, I'm partly blind. Partly blind people tend to walk into things and get hurt or cause hurt to others. If a spouse, for instance, thinks his or her perspective is the only valid one, trouble is on the horizon. People with strong opinions need to be very careful here to not drown out the perspective of a spouse with not so clear opinion. It is critical in marriage to see the other person's perspective. It's crucial that we do that. Imagine you and your spouse are in a boat on a quiet lake. You both enjoy spending time together. You are just sitting there and in the middle of this lake, soaking in the atmosphere, soaking in the surroundings, and your spouse looks to the left of the boat, sees a house nestled among the trees and says, "What a beautiful house that is." But at that same moment, you look to the right of the boat and see an old, dilapidated old boathouse with a hole in the roof, no front door, and peeling paint all over. And you exclaim, "No, that's ugly." That's one-sided perspective. If you were looking at the same thing, the discussion would be much different. And your discussion can be focused instead of becoming an argument. Now imagine if the thing that you are talking about is more important than just someone else's house next to a lake. What if it was something really, really important that really affected your marriage, your future, your health? Something like the way you work with money. If you see it this way and your spouse sees it that way, it's conditions for the perfect storm. What about disciplining children? I mentioned this in the previous one as well, where you've got to have those safety boundaries in. But how you discipline your children can be a place of conflict. If you don't see it the same way, if you don't get on the same page on this, it can really create problems. How you spend leisure time, how you deal with in-laws and extended family dynamics. Selfish thinking will always dictate that your perspective is the only right one. So the key here is to be able to see each other's perspective, to really appreciate each other's perspective, to talk about it, to turn your head and look, to see and understand how and why your spouse sees things the way he or she sees it. Personality, upbringing, emotional background, and values can all play a part in why we see things the way we do. So to be open to understand and have healthy conversation about it, reach middle ground. That's crucial. To reach a place where you can see eye to eye on things, even though not exactly how you want it or how your spouse wants it, but at least you get to a place of saying, we agree on this. Very important. All right, we're going to take a break here. I'm going to continue with the fourth sign of selfishness in marriage in the next session. But I want you to take your workbook right now and just, as a couple, work through those scriptures that I shared with you. Talk about them, pray about them, read them together and have a discussion about them. Secondly, I want you to talk about, just briefly, about the analogy that I shared with you that Craig Hill has put in a book form, Two Fleas and No Dog. How do you see that? How do you view that? And again, if you want to order that book, get in contact with us, please. And the third thing is, have a look at that scale picture in your book, which talks about how selfishness can draw so many things unto the person, where things like work and family and even our relationship with God is then demanded to feed into the selfishness, and it upsets the balance in the person's life. So have a look at those, and I'll see you in the next session with some more signs of selfishness in marriage. Goodbye.
Thanks for joining us on this course. Be sure to check out our website www.crosspoint.org.za to see what else we have to offer. Remember, we want to see you prosper.